Welcome to the third video in this four-part video series called Breaking the Blockbuster Model, which will help you level up your teaching with technology. I'm Matt Miller, author and creator of Ditch That Textbook, and I'm joined again by Nate Ridgway, right next to me, a tech-loving history teacher whose classroom and teaching have been transformed by tech. And Nate, we're on the third video already. Can you believe it? Like, how much fun has this been, right?
Yeah, we're already halfway done with the series, the season, right?
Yeah, the season. That's right, because we've been kind of doing this through the lens of movies and everything,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
just like a Netflix series that we're
We're
putting
gonna
out,
have to
right?
get a spinoff next, and eventually we're gonna have to go back and record prequels, and it's
Yeah,
a whole thing.
that's right. Yeah, and we're gonna like license merchandise and all of
Oh, yeah.
that. Yeah, totally. Now, Nate, of course, if you haven't met him yet, is a history teacher in Central Indiana, and his U.S. history classes have been transformed by the way he uses technology. His students have better access to his teaching and resources because of it. They're doing amazing things to show what they've learned, and his teaching workflow has been streamlined thanks to his use of tech. Now, this video series is full of Nate's best advice, tips, and strategies to help you use the technology in your classroom to transform learning the way that you want. And if you haven't seen the first two videos, I highly recommend that you go check them out first. Don't worry, we'll wait right here until you come back. Like, we'll stay right here, right, Nate?
Yeah, hit rewind, and yeah.
Yes, that's right. Now, all of those videos are so full of practical tips and ideas that you can use right away. For instance, in the first video, Nate told us about the movie theater model of teaching and how we can make the most of it with our classroom technology. In the second video, we went beyond the movie theater model to the Blockbuster model. You remember Blockbuster video rental stores?
Oh,
Yeah, we looked at some traditional things that we're doing right now with technology and how we can level those up. And now is the moment we've all been waiting for. It's time to leave Blockbuster video rentals and sign up for Netflix. This is the streaming model. So Nate, this is what we've all been waiting for. Can you
I
tell us
know.
about the streaming model and how we can compare teaching and learning to it?
Yeah. So with Blockbuster being the way that we had always assumed things were going to be, right, and also with our teaching too, in a lot of ways, the streaming model takes our classroom and our instruction and teaching and learning, and it reinvents and refocuses that experience of learning on equity, access, reflection, and ultimately a much more student-centric experience, and a much more authentic way of learning, that hopefully matches the ways that our students like and prefer to learn today. So now with the streaming model, and this is something that I want to especially emphasize, this is not something that you have to build in a day. It is a like you see on a lot of shows that get released on your favorite streaming services that all of us have now, many of us have signed up for. Nobody dumps 8 seasons of a show all at once. This is something that you gradually build over time, and it isn't. It isn't something that you need to like flood out all of a sudden. It can be kind of slow dripped in as time goes on.
Yeah. So let's kind of take a look at some of the parts of the streaming model. What do you think, Nate?
Yeah. So the essence and at the very heart of the streaming model is something called cloning. So cloning is not the same thing as flipping your instruction. Cloning is essentially taking you as an individual teacher and creating essentially a digital copy of yourself and your classroom that can be accessed anywhere, anytime. So those restrictions that happen with back in the movie theater model about, I can only go see the movie at 7 o'clock and it's only going to play in English. And if I have to go to the bathroom, too bad. We take that and we're getting rid of it now because we're allowing students to essentially, if they're in class with you, then you can pull from, that digital clone that you have created and you teach like normal, right? Just like, you have students in front of you.
Yeah. So maybe we can park on that for just a second because
Mhm.
you've done this in your own class. Could you tell us just a
Yeah.
little bit about what it looks like in your own particular class?
Yeah, so I originally looked back at and came up with this idea of cloning back actually before the pandemic hit. So this is back in 2015, and basically what it looks like for me on an average day with cloning, is it looks exactly the same as like students walking into your class and anybody else's classroom. And so what happens is like when students walk into my room, they know that there's on whatever LMS that I may use or you might use in your particular classroom, that everything they're going to need is going to be there. Note sheets, activities, maybe like a Padlet that we're using that day as like a collaborative discussion board. Whatever it is, there's going to be a seamless moment of access that they can have, whether it's in class or if they're sick because right now COVID, or whatever it is, right, that they're going to be able to get to. And if you kind of think about like, your average streaming service, whether that's Amazon Prime or Disney or whatever, this is something that actually streaming services are super good about doing. It's like, do you want to, watch, Succession on your Amazon, Prime device in your kitchen? Cool. Would you rather, watch it on your phone while you're, on your Peloton? Awesome, that works too. Like, and streaming services are so good about meeting people where they are, and that's exactly what this model is trying to do with students, essentially, in terms of how they access the content in class. And so that's
That's
kind
cool.
of the heart of cloning.
Yeah, so it's like in class you've got a certain experience, and then there's a mimicking experience to that that they
Hmm.
can access, so that if they miss something in class, they can get to it at home, or
Yeah,
if they need to revisit something, it's almost like a mirror version of your classroom experiences that are accessible anywhere, right?
yeah, and the whole point of this is that this is supposed to save us time,
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
and this is a thing I want to especially emphasize here, is that how many versions, I mean, think about like how many versions of our classrooms we have to make on a given day. Like we have to have a late work folder for students if they were gone, or I'd have to have like a sub plan version of stuff if I was gone, or like then the actual thing I'm going to bring if I'm physically in the classroom with students. Like, instead of doing all that, we come up with this one clone that can be used in anywhere in a whole variety of different contexts.
Mhm.
And so, for example, like one of the ways that I suggest in the book as a way to start with cloning is to start to think about how you can make your content accessible in a variety of ways that are not just for students in the classroom, but also outside the classroom. And there's this one really cool trick that I'd like folks to try, and it's called the 5-click rule. And the test is, if you go into like Netflix or whatever, Prime, Disney Plus, can you get to your favorite show in less than 5 clicks? And for most of us, the answer is going to be yes. And there's a reason why that's true, and it's because clicks are barriers. And every single time your students are
Mhm.
trying to get to your content, the more clicks and the more things they have to navigate, the harder it is to get to that thing. So if my students can get to my content in less than 5 clicks, then I'm doing something right in my
Mhm.
book.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's a really easy, simple litmus test off the bat to see how am I making my content more accessible to my students and also their families as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Um, barriers. I've heard you talk about barriers about this, and clicks can be barriers. I think I've also heard you say that like passwords can be barriers, like usernames and
Yep.
passwords too. Like we should think, shouldn't do you think that we should think about, do we really need to have them logging into something so that it doesn't become a barrier?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, imagine just try this. I dare you. Go into a classroom of kindergartners and have them try to type in a letter and number combination to get logged into an app. It will be a nightmare.
Mhm.
And I say this having a kindergartner myself. It is, yeah. So if you can get an app that will auto log in your students, right, or just seamlessly jump them from thing to thing, right, they're not having to download a file, or if they have low bandwidth, right, that
Yeah.
they can also listen to it. These are all things that are helpful to think about.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, we're we all still, so many of us very vividly remember when the pandemic forced us to go remote.
Mm.
and it took a lot of us by surprise. Thankfully, I think from what you described, Nate, I think you were a little more prepared for it maybe than others, but
Yeah.
so many of us just were totally unprepared for it. And all we wanted, or at least many of us anyway, was just to go back to normal. We just
Mhm.
wanted to go back to normal, right? And
Mhm.
you kind of suggest, not kind of, you suggest that maybe we don't need to go back to normal. And that's sort of the idea of breaking the Blockbuster model, right?
Yeah. Is the normal that we had worth returning to? And I would argue for a lot of folks, having begun the pandemic in one school and then also transitioning to another school in the middle of the pandemic, going from a predominantly school with low income, less internet access to one with much better, that the effects of the pandemic were felt remarkably unequally. And I would encourage, everyone, including myself, continually to reflect on thinking about, was the way that we were doing things in terms of like how our students got to our content, or stuff that we look back in the last video with late work and things like that. Is that something that we want to return to as
Yeah.
it was?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I totally agree with you there. No, this is great. This is such good stuff. Like this feels like what you're describing with the streaming model, like the Netflix model.
Mhm.
And even some of the ways that we can make the most of the Blockbuster model, like the way we've always done things, and the movie
Mhm.
theater model, like this just it feels like the vision, the future,
Yeah, I think, and in one way for me that's a lot of like this is one that strikes particularly hard with me, is like when you open up your favorite streaming service and you're like, I like, murder mystery stuff. And they're like, oh, you liked this? Would you also like to try this? And
Yeah.
like they're so good about streaming services about tailoring engagement to what people are interested in. And so like I have a whole section, a whole chapter called differentiate like the algorithms do. Now, of course,
Oh,
we're
yeah.
not like a supercomputer. We can't do everything like that, right? But
Mhm.
if we can slowly add these bits and pieces in where students can naturally express, for example, the things that they're interested in, or can engage with the things that they're interested in, that's good. Engagement matters, right? For
Yeah.
Netflix, engagement is all about profit, but for us, it's all about learning. And so
Yes.
we can take that same idea about, oh, you're interested in this thing, you should also check this thing out over here. That's really cool too. And we can use that same model to build, in actual engagement in what we're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
This is so good. This is fantastic. Now in the last 3 videos, we've looked at lots of ways to use technology in ways that help us level up our teaching and learning. And Nate, you're a high school teacher,
I am.
but this isn't a high school idea. Like
No.
lots of these ideas can be used for younger students, older students, across all different content areas and grade levels. Like
Mhm.
what would some of these ideas look like for younger students, like
Oh,
elementary or middle
there's
school?
so many examples. Like
Yeah.
one of the authors who was so kind to contribute to the book that's coming out. His name's Ben Cogswell, and he does some fantastic work with his students on Seesaw and making the content available to families anytime they wish. So he does the cloning model super, super well. These like small videos where he's having students, practice counting to 20, and it's like a 2-minute recording on
Mhm.
Seesaw. And it's very simple. It's very small. I mean, it takes him probably less than 5 minutes, to create that. But then it's something that students can and families can continually keep re-engaging with at a time that's convenient for them, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I also taught middle school and have a special education background. This is something that is particularly helpful for students who are needing those additional scaffolds and support, whether they're at an elementary, middle, high school, or even collegiate level.
Yeah.
The idea of like, oh, I can get like extra support from the very person who's teaching my class, because they have this clone, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Super, super powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this vision so much. I mean, if you think about it, what if using technology didn't feel like just a techie version of what you already do? Like
Yeah.
these are the kinds of strategies that center learning on students. They help them to learn in ways that they're familiar with already through services
Mhm.
like Netflix. And I mean, they even save you time and they make class engaging. Like this makes sense to me, you know?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and for me, it's another big thing about, like, this is not something that we need to add another, like, dish to educators' plates. Like, this is something that's gonna be we put a little bit of time in, and by the first moment that a student say, "Hey, what did we do last class?" I've already saved the time that it took to make whatever it was, right?
Yep.
So yeah, the time payoff of while there's a small investment up front and building things over time, it
Yeah.
pays dividends in the future.
Yep, absolutely. Now, if you're watching this, I got to ask you, is this resonating with you? If you'd like to continue taking steps to level up your tech game and empower your students, you know, just like you have been by watching all of these videos, then, you know, if that sounds like something you'd like to do, you've got to check out this fourth and final video that's coming up next in this 4-part series, Breaking the Blockbuster Model. And in that fourth video, Nate will give you his very best advice, strategies, and tips for transforming your teaching with technology, moving up through the models you've seen in these videos, through the movie theater model, through the Blockbuster model, through the Netflix model. Plus, there is a very special part of this last video that is time sensitive. So don't
Mhm.
wait too long before you watch it. Now, we want to hear from you, just like we have in all of the previous videos. Before you leave, would you go down below and add a comment to answer one of these questions? First question: what's your vision for how teaching and learning could look with technology? What's your vision? And then question 2, what are your best upgrades with tech that have made the most impact? If you would answer one of those questions in the comments below, and then just go check out the wealth of information that people have shared in their own comments. And then also, if you know someone who would love this video series, then you can just send them to this link, ditch.link/blockbuster. Again, that's ditch.link/blockbuster if they want to check it out. And also, they can sign up for email updates so they don't miss a thing by going to ditchthattextbook.com/101 to join our email list. So thanks so much for watching this video, and we will see you in the comments, and also we'll see you in this fourth and final video. Take care.